Hi everyone, good evening, and thank you very much for joining us for this session. Since it's a smaller group, we will keep our conversation limited and have maybe more time for Q&A, and that should be more interesting for everyone. So I think Varshaa, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Varshaa Jain. I've been in this industry for 20 years, and I think with all the 360 degrees that we have done through the film journey, what I realize is the beauty of the lovely content that gets created and not seeing too much of the light of the day. So that motivated me to get into distribution, and that's what I'm doing these days, film distribution. To introduce myself, I've been an ex-NFDC as Deputy Director, Film Bazaar, and I started my journey as a film writer. So stories are very close to my heart. And so we are also excited to hear all the stories that we would get to know and hear even from you as all of you present here. Yeah, over to you.
Yeah, and my name is Preethi Vyas, and I have spent the last 30 years of my life in the world of content and stories and publishing. I'm currently the president of content strategy, consumer products and partnerships at Mythik. It's an upcoming content tech startup. And just before I joined Mythik, my last role was as the CEO and president of Amar Chitrakatha, and I was there for 6 years. So yeah, I've always been in the world of stories, and it's what my whole life has been about. So let's start with a few questions. We were actually supposed to have a third person with us asking the questions, but he's not here. So now we're going to ask each other questions.
So now instead of the moderator asking us questions, we made it chai pe charcha. So हम आपके साथ भी चर्चा करेंगे, आपस में भी चर्चा करेंगे.
It's Atmanirbhar Bharat, right? You don't need a moderator or anybody else. We can manage fine. So Varshaa, the first question is for you. That what is the first memory, the first story you remember hearing, not reading but hearing, and how do such stories shape our sense of self and belonging?
So basically, I think when I think of stories, I think what really linger on in my subconscious is all those moral science stories that we heard in school, that somehow kind of shapes and defines how we think, how we act, how we believe in something. But there's something very close to my heart. I come from a freedom fighters family, and I've grown up hearing stories of our favorite, like, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, who hid in our family, like my Nanaji's mansion in Agra when the Britishers were stalking him at the time of the freedom movement.
So cool.
So in that house, we still have a hidden tunnel which goes from under the house to outside of Agra. So that's something, and as a writer, I think I really dream and aspire. I'm just a little lazy, I think, writing my own stories. But I hope I can do justice and write it in my own, we all have imaginations when we hear stories. So, so I really hope I can write that someday. And if we are speaking about it on this panel, you never know, Mythik may just land up making it. And,
absolutely.
And, and the 360-degree dome experience that I was sharing with you. I mean, something like those kind of content on a 360-degree immersive showcase would be like, I think, nostalgic and out of the world. Yeah. So that's something which really I cherish a lot.
Right.
And so what about you? Now, I think you should tell me, how does one take forward the legacy of vintage stories, without affecting the soul of the basic story?
So I think the beauty of Indian stories and our entire universe of Indian mythology is that these stories have survived thousands of years. It's a story, like a bank of stories, which is probably 3,000 to 5,000 years old. And I believe that there is something which is so intrinsically powerful and deep and rich in those stories that they have managed to survive the test of time, and they will continue to survive because they are so rich. It's up to us as storytellers to understand what is the audience today like, and how can I make sure that those stories remain relevant to today's audience. And actually, indeed, like for example, the Ramayana has more than 100 versions, because in every era and every age, there has been somebody who has adapted the Ramayana to suit that current, the needs of the current audience then, whether it is from Tulsidas to Valmiki to the Kamban Ramayana. They all are different because they adapt to a certain region or a certain point of time. And that's the lesson for us, that how do you tell stories which will appeal to today's generation, to today's audiences. So whether at Amachitra Katha we're talking to an 8 to 12-year-old child, when we were growing up reading Amachitra Katha, we didn't have many other entertainment sources. Like there was one TV channel and there was very limited. But today, of course, children have access to the internet and they have access to the audiovisual medium. So now, talking to today's 8-year-old, how do I make my story come alive? What is the kind of language to use? What is the kind of art that will appeal to them? How do you compete with the Marvel MCU universe and the Marvel superheroes and Disney's Frozen? And how do I compete with that and present our stories in the same confident, powerful way which will appeal to today's generation? And it's absolutely possible. Amachitra Katha has been doing it for 57 years. It's still doing it. At Mythik, we're trying to do exactly that all over again, except that now we're doing it for a global audience. But keeping the soul is the biggest responsibility of the storyteller, to ensure that you keep that soul intact. And then you find creative ways of ensuring that it appeals and endears itself to today's audience.
No, that's so true. And I think, I'm sure a lot of us are content creators here and some may be just content consumers here. But I think many of us grew up hearing stories and some of them has just disappeared, yes, from the framework of the storytelling world. So, what could be the reason? Like, why is it that some stories just continue for generations together and some just disappear?
I think it just comes down to the method of storytelling. If you have a strong storyteller, whether it's somebody who is narrating it, it could be somebody who's painting that story. So we have this beautiful tradition, or whether it is Pattachitra or Madhubani, it's all storytelling through art. Or you have so much folk music which tells stories. So if somebody has taken that story and said, okay, I am going to present the story in my unique way, it has survived. But if unfortunately, I'd actually read a fictional book once about forgotten stories, like all these stories are talking. And they're saying that each of those stories is seeking and searching, ke koi aake mujhe utha le. Like, I am here. I wish there would be a storyteller who would pick me up, because I have everything inside me.
That's
interesting. But if I don't find the right medium, I'm stuck. I'll be lost. I'll be forgotten.
So, it's like we speak so much about stories, and I think each of the stories unknowingly, knowingly impact us in some little way and adds to our fabric, to our texture, to the way we think. So it just brought me to just sharing one little story, which is so common, we all know, but how it impacted me, I think I would love to share that. But we've all read that Hare and the Tortoise story, right? And I think when I was little, my mom always encouraged that you should participate in all the possible competitions and everywhere. And as kids,
sounds sometimes,
like my mom. Yeah. And so you're apprehensive. Sometimes you don't want to lose, or you don't want to be like over, or you don't want to be diluted somewhere. And so she would always be like, that you should participate. It's not about winning or losing just that medal or prize or trophy. It's about winning all the experiences, the exposure, the knowledge, the skill sets, which will automatically grow with each such participation. And today when I reflect back in my 20 years of journey, even in this industry, and 30 years overall in a professional life, I think it's all those little experiences which add up to what we are and where we are today. And I think on that note, just to make it interesting, and it would be lovely to hear from all of you some little story that ingrains in your being and soul in some way, and how it has impacted you. Would anybody like to share any of your story experience?
Or of course, if you have a question, feel free to ask that as well.
Yeah, before we move to the next question to each other, it will be nice to hear something. Would anyone be interested? You there, up front there? No? Anyone? Nobody? Okay, so we'll continue then. We are used to bantering, so I'm sure as long as it's not, boring any of you, then we are happy to banter.
So I have a question for you, Varsha.
Yeah.
Can legacy narratives still provoke, not just comfort? what role does conflict or protest play in keeping traditions alive? So are we reading these old stories just because they make us feel nostalgic and warm and fuzzy inside? Or can they still play a role in provoking us or in shifting the needle in some way in society?
See, the stories are very impactful. They can drive what you want it to drive. You know, these are, when you say provoke, then we know a lot of socio-political initiatives get triggered by emotions, by stories, by narratives, by something that will touch our emotional chords. So definitely they do. They don't just comfort us. We can hear a story and go to sleep. We can hear a story and have fun and share, you know, bonding with our friends and family. But also when we hear stories, like for example, when I just shared the one with Subhash Chandra Bose, for instance, that does draw that whole crazy patriot within me, right? And I participated in the India against corruption and all of those things only because of such stories that I grew up on. So yeah, they play a very powerful role in what we choose to do and how we choose to do in life. And yes.
Like in a sense, that's really the role of a story, right? To ignite that spark, to create that inspiration, whether it is in a child or whether it is in an adult who is going through life in, you know, a very, you know, routine zombie-like fashion, and then you have a story that sparks that, that inspires you in some way and pushes you to move, you know, to move forward.
And we all have our own unique points, you know. There's something which will appeal to me, which will not appeal to you. But the same story can trigger two different emotions within each of us, and we take a different path that we choose to because of what it triggered within us.
Absolutely.
So that's the beauty of stories, that we all discover ourselves through the journey of others, you know. And for me, that's why I feel movies and, you know, cartoons and biographies and all of those things are just something, you don't need to even look up to somebody or something, because even if it's a story of anybody, you and me, anyone, it can motivate me to hear your story, it can motivate you to hear my story. So that's the beauty of stories, and they do provoke all kinds of emotions, positive, negative, love, hate, anything, yeah.
Right.
So
you have a question for me?
I need to ask you some question. Let me see, what can I ask you?
We can happily move forward to segment 4.
Okay. No, so before segment...
We have a question.
Oh, that's nice. Do we have a story there?
I really want to encourage questions, so let's clap for him, everyone.
Yes, a big hand.
And before you ask your question, please, sir, introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Amol Agwekar.
Hi, Amol.
I want to ask you, both of you, you were telling that Indian stories and other stories, foreign stories. The basic difference, what both of you should answer. What is the basic difference while writing such a story and placing it in words? What is the basic difference as a writer, both of you feel?
Between Indian stories and...
Indian stories and foreign stories.
Do you want
to? Yeah, I can go for it. So basically when you're writing, I think the first important thing is to connect with the characters, to connect with the story. So whether it is Indian content, whether it is international content, once you've connected with whom you're trying to build, it'll automatically flow. Successful film projects, especially as writers, don't happen because you've strategized what you want to make it look like. You've emoted what you felt the character should be emoting, not your emotions, but the character's emotions. So that's the most important. And in Indian content, if you're writing something which is research-based, mytho, or any of biographical, then obviously you have no choice. Then you are like documenting what is the fact and then adding your fictional aspect if it's not a documentary film. And I've been a documentary filmmaker. I made 12 documentary films, won some awards. So I understand that when you make a documentary, life is very easy. But when you want to make a docudrama, then that liberty isn't there to, you know, play overboard nor underplay it. Otherwise, you'll lose the attention of the public. Yeah.
So to answer the same question, there isn't actually... Ultimately, a good story is a good story. It should hold the audience's attention, whether it is a reader, it is a viewer. It should hold the audience's attention. It should leave some inspiration or leave some thought, some food for thought, right? The basic difference between the Western and the Indic way of storytelling is that in the Western world of storytelling, it's a very standard, like there's a beginning, there is a conflict, and beginning, middle, and end. There is a conflict in the middle which gets resolved, and that's the end of the story. It's always very linear in that sense. Whereas in the Indic way of storytelling, it doesn't necessarily follow that arc. Right? A lot of things are, because the purpose of stories in the Indic way is not just to entertain. It is actually to provoke some thought in you, to leave a message. So a lot of times the story might not, like the Bhagavad Gita is a beautiful story, but there is no beginning, middle and end. It's a set of passages which every time you go back to that book, you will find some new meaning in it, right? Or some new message. Or the way the Mahabharata ends, it's not a very definitive, it leaves you thinking, right? Like what happened at the end. So that's a big difference, that in the Indic way of storytelling, in the Indian way of storytelling, all our stories carry a very, underlying the story is a philosophy, is a message, is some spirituality. And as a writer, if you don't go down to that level and you remain at a superficial level, you'll miss that. That is the actual essence of it. So it's very important to go that 2 levels deeper, right? And get to what is really at the heart of that story. I hope we've answered it. Yes, of course.
Hi Varsha, hi Preethi. My name is Kapil Jain.
Hi Kapil.
और मेरी मम्मी मुझे बचपन से और मेरी छोटी बहन को बचपन से कहानी सुनाती आई है, अब वो मेरे बेटे को भी सुनाती है. तो चूंकि आपने बात करी स्टोरी की, तो मैं वो बताना चाह रहा था. तो छोटी सी स्टोरी है. I'm an entrepreneur, so I'm not from your domain.
No, you're most welcome. You can
learn from you guys.
Yeah, we are happy to hear.
So वो स्टोरी का नाम है हल्दी फल्दी. हल्दी फल्दी. तो 2 बहनें होती हैं और एक बहन जो होती है वो घर का काम करती है. तो मेरी छोटी बहन मुझसे 2.5 साल छोटी है और मैं 2.5 साल बड़ा हूँ. और एक जो काम नहीं करती है, तो उनके वो अपने वहाँ से ननिहाल जाती है बाई रोड, राइट, रास्ते से जाती है, हाथी पे बैठती है, कुछ होता है उसके बीच में. तो लास्ट में जो गिफ्ट नानी देती है वो हल्दी को देती है, क्योंकि हल्दी उसको काम में हाथ बटाती है. तो जो अंडरलाइनिंग मैसेज जो जनरेशन से आ रहा है, मेरी मम्मी को उसकी मम्मी ने सुनाया और मेरे बच्चे को भी वो सुना रही है और मैं भी सुनाता हूँ कभी कभी. तो उसमें बॉटम लाइन यही है कि घर का काम बहन को और भाई को मिलके दोनों को करना है, और जो ज़्यादा काम करेगा, जो ज़्यादा कंट्रीब्यूट करेगा, उसे रिवॉर्ड मिलेगा.
कितना मतलब सुंदर तरीके से बच्चों को ग्रूम करने की तरीका है कि हाँ भाई देयर इज नो जेंडर बायस, सबको हेल्प तो सबको करना है. लाइक सो नाइस.
और एक छोटा सा अभी, जैसे मेरा छोटा बेटा है 8 साल का, तो जब से वो समझ पकड़ा है, 3 साल से वो समझने लगा, तो अब जब हम उसको स्टोरी सुनाते हैं, तो वो स्टोरीज जो होती हैं, इट्स मोर लाइक कि आई चीफ मतलब कि मैं उसे चीफ बनाता हूँ स्टोरी में. और वो कभी मार्स में जाता है, कभी समुद्र में जाता है, कभी जियोपॉलिटिकल प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व करता है. उसमें इलोन उसका दोस्त है और उसके जो दोस्त हैं वो उसके वॉरियर्स हैं, तो वो उससे रिलेट कर पाता है. हम लोग रिलेट कर पाते थे आज से 30 साल पहले किसी और चीज़ से. आज के बच्चे जो है वो रिलेट कर पाते हैं कुछ ऐसी चीज़ों से जो बहुत ज़्यादा कॉन्टेम्प्ररी हो. सो दिस आर द 2 things which I would like to share.
But you know, I have to congratulate you, and I mean really hats off to you, because what you're doing for your child, you won't even realize the impact. You think you're telling him an entertaining story, but the deep level of self-confidence, self-esteem that is being built in this child, every one story at a time, to feel that he is good enough to interact with Elon Musk, or he is good enough to take on any challenge. He can solve geopolitical problems. I can do it because my dad believes I can do it. And that sort of confidence, if your child steps, and I had read a very beautiful quote once, that as parents, it's our job to give our children experiences of success and confidence.
And
that's
confidence, that's where the whole...
You're developing that, and for me, I can relate because my dad used to do that for me. And the most beautiful memories of my childhood are, lying on the bed with my dad's arm and me lying there and listening to stories. So treasure these moments because kids grow up too fast.
And the fact that we are all so busy with our lives that we forget to share that bonding time. That's the most beautiful way and time to bond with our children, parents. Why just children? Even with our parents who are growing older, you sit with them, you speak about stories. It's such a beautiful way to bond with them. So it's amazing. A big hand for him for sharing this story, and it'll be lovely even if anyone else.
He's definitely not here, so I can say it because he's very embarrassed. But even now, if like we are, in a restaurant or we're just waiting for something, he'll be really bold. He'll say, "Okay, tell me a story." He still does that.
You're a lucky girl. Then,
Yeah, that's the power of
you're a
good story.
you're a lucky girl because like my son's 28 and my husband loves to like narrate stories. Once upon a time, if he wants to really tickle him, once upon a time, like no, I don't want to hear more stories. So yeah. So that's the beauty of bonding in different ways. Like even for him, the kick. Interesting thing for your son is to hear the story, and the interesting thing I think for my son is to have the joy of telling like no to his dad for one thing at least, probably. So it's all for fun. Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah. So,
Varsha, how do you now see, like, let's talk about the elephant in the room, which everybody is obviously knows what we're going to talk about, which is the impact of AI.
Right.
And the impact of AI on storytelling, AI script writers and AI storyboard artists and AI doing everything. How do you see AI impacting our world?
So honestly, if you ask me, I'm an AI fan, and I think I don't dread it. I think it's a good thing that's happened. It's all about how we use it, how we optimize it, how we make the most of it. End of the day, it's just a tool. It has no brains of its own. So if I have the aesthetics, if I have the sensibility of creating content, what will come out will be good, and someone who doesn't have it will not be able to deliver something good. The downside of it is people who've been putting out a lot of, because it's free to put things on social media in the digital space, create something on your phone and put it out there, and we see so much of mixed bag of content. Good content obviously, yes, but so much of crass out there. Now we can expect some more of it because it's just like a click away, and people in this crowded world are becoming more lonely. They want self-worthiness through clicks and likes and shares and all of those things, and which I feel it takes them deeper down into that. But that's the downside, the negative side of the coin, where we will see. But I think coming from a VFX industry, like, and the post-production and filmmaking industry, what I realize is that AI is a blessing in so many ways. Like, it's not getting people to lose jobs, it's definitely helping us faster turn around a project. Only projects have gone down, they are not doing well in the industry, the film industry is like not collecting enough money, so jobs are going, but AI is only enhancing and adding. And we've also come up with this whole thing where, say, if you're a celebrity and you've been written about, or there's something being posted about you and you don't want it to be visible, we have this AI services wherein within 2 hours it'll scan the whole digital space and it'll remove what is unwanted. And we also have tie-up with individual companies like Book My Show and other people, wherein if even there's a bad review of a movie in that app, even that can be removed. So there are some tie-ups happening with a lot of yeah. So it's like see, end of the day, if the industry benefits, more people come and watch films, it changes the diaspora for the entire community of filmmaking.
Right.
Currently, I'll say, oh, this movie is like that, this movie is like that. Pehle movies kyun chalti thi? Word of mouth. Jao dekho. Ab now nobody is doing that because other way around, negative publicity started becoming more, mat jao. So we need to change that,
I think actually AI is such a leveler because it's the ultimate democratization of content. Before the advent of AI, if somebody wanted to tell a story, right, they needed to have a huge amount of resources, have connections. An animated movie would cost, or animated show even a single episode would cost lakhs of rupees, and you would need to have a lot of connections and take a lot of time to make that happen. But thanks to the tools available, it's now going to be actually survival of the most creative person, because it's the AI will only respond to the prompts that you give it, right?
Exactly.
It's not going to create on its own without the right prompts and without the right visualization.
Yes.
So it's actually the most creative storytellers who now have an even playing field.
Yeah.
And it's going to democratize things. And I think that I'm very excited that from an Indian storytelling universe perspective, like you were saying earlier, all those lesser known stories which have been forgotten, which have been left behind because we've not had the resources to tell and we have thousands of stories. I think they're all going to come out, and that's going to be beautiful.
And each of us carries a story, right?
Exactly.
So people would love to share their story.
Yeah.
And everyone is not going to make a movie or a book on their life. So, I think AI in that sense is a very good thing. And we did one R&D, like we did one research, we did a task. We had like 5 people in the organization. We gave them the same lyrics and we said, make it into a music video. And that is what eventually showcases it's not only creativity, maybe the most creative guy made the worst thing, because it's a combination of how creative you are, how much of common sense do you have, how much do you understand what you're being asked. A lot of people don't understand what the question is.
Right.
And then they choose the wrong prompt, and what you land up is a different strain of music or a different something.
Right.
So I think it's a combination, and I think we as filmmakers and content creators, I think we are smart enough to do it, like then more than techies.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so even at Amachita Katha, I mean, I should tell the team that we are not threatened by AI. We can just use it to do a lot of the non-core tasks which an artist should not be doing, Let AI take care of those tasks so the artist can actually use their creativity to create that much more content, to create that many more stories because of the time it frees up. So I think it's a wonderful tool, and like any tool, it has to be used in the right way. And
yes. So I have a question for you.
Okay.
Say the stories that we carry forward, that is something that if we had to preserve just one story for the future generations, then which would be your choice and why?
I think the answer would be obvious to a lot of people. I think it would be the Ramayana, because that is one story which has got so much. I mean, I'm just rereading it right now for a project, and I'm just once again discovering it and discovering all the little subplots and sub-stories, the nuances, human relationships, conflict, the motivation behind doing things. It's just an amazing story, and I think it has survived and it will continue to,
Yeah, that's an excellent choice, and my choice was Mahabharata.
Great.
Because
So between the two of us,
even that's so
we are
important, I
taking care of
think,
the
yeah.
ethics.
Because we are living in a world full of conflict and battles and fights and dharam sankat, and what do you do in a certain situation and all of that. And I feel if something like a Ramayana and Mahabharata gets adapted and readapted, even other than its original story, into content which depicts a situation and how do you handle that in that particular scenario with what was done in Ramayana and Mahabharata. So we can make 100 movies out of just what Ramayana and Mahabharata started to say. So I think it's the perfect choice.
Absolutely.
And I think now there'll be one last question, or rather point, aspect, which we're going to answer, but even all of you have to come back and answer on that. Yeah, it's something which helps all of us as an industry as a whole. And that was basically, I'll just tell you. How do we pass stories on in a world that scrolls instead of listens? Hum sirf pura din we are scrolling, we see so much and we, watch everything, but we are forgetting to hear, I think, nowadays. I think all of us want to speak like we are speaking now. How much of us do we want to hear is something, and I think what we've retained in our subconscious mind is what we heard, right, as kids. We were listening in the classrooms, we were listening at home, we were listening from mom, from dadima, from everyone. So what do we do, and how should we come up with more content which is more about hearing than scrolling?
So my answer is going to be not agreeing with the question in this case, because I feel that as a storyteller, I'm platform agnostic. I don't care whether you want to listen to the story, you want to read the story, you want to watch the story. If there is a way in the future for the story to be beamed from some server to my brain, that's also fine with me. As long as the story is being consumed, I really don't care. And I feel that as storyteller, our job is to play in the world of the audience. Like, we have to make sure that we are, so if the world is scrolling, let's make scrollable content. Let's tell our stories in that format. Let's not try to change human behavior. Let's adapt ourselves to the existing behavior, because you have the best chance of success in that. You're not creating a new road. There is a highway already built there is an expressway, there are a lot of cars on it. I just have to make sure that my car is getting onto it, you know.
No, that's a good answer, but I feel there is a lot of scope even for content that can be heard. Why? Because, you know, sometimes we are, like, we all know, we are the kind of people, if we are working, there are sometimes you want to hear things.
Yeah.
Or
So
while
with
you're cooking.
audiobooks, for example,
So like, or,
in audiobooks, the biggest segment, the fastest growing and the biggest segment is self-help.
Eh,
People love to listen to self-help books
Yes.
when they're driving or on the commute because it's like the perfect thing, right?
Yeah.
To spend an hour doing. So I just feel like if you want to listen, I'll give them audio content. If somebody wants to read, I'll give them books. If they want to watch, we'll create content. Our job is to tell the story.
Right. So, just sharing one little experience of a film which I recently distributed. It was a film for the deaf, by the deaf. It was called Jesus by Deaf Mission. The entire cast was deaf, the entire crew was deaf, and they've made a film, 2.5-hour feature film in American Sign Language, which we interpreted into Indian Sign Language and a Hindi voice over it. And we released it in 28 cities, and it was mesmerizing to see that those who can't hear still know how to enjoy a content and absorb content. Similarly, a lot of people are not making too much of content which can be heard. Not necessarily for the differently abled, but generally, because you know what, I think sometimes, like, say when we were growing up, so there was this thing, subah there's a record player playing at home, or there's a radio playing at home. Now all that is gone because, you know, somehow we are not in that hearing zone more, we are more in the visual space. So this was a good point which I liked personally on this question, that the moderator and the organizers were keen to know that why is it only so much of scrollable content rather than listenable content. So I don't know what is the thought of other creators, but what you said is right. We are in the business of content, so make whatever everybody wants, but please, all of you, do share your thoughts. What is your take on this audio content side of life?
We do consume podcast.
Yeah.
Like,
Mic is not on.
yeah, we do consume podcast in terms of content, and it's a talk of the thing now because the age groups, not necessarily of our age, but youngsters are also listening. And in US, I have seen podcast last till 8 hours. You know, the Lex Fridman, and people listen in millions of numbers, right? So listening is there, still it's there, and people enjoy, as you rightly mentioned, that whenever we are driving or we are doing some task, cooking, cleaning house, we are listening to
them,
all those things.
Yeah.
मैम जहाँ तक मैंने देखा है जहाँ तक मैंने 2-3 मूवीज़ देखी है हॉलीवुड की, तो मुझे लग रहा है वहाँ के राइटर्स ऑलरेडी इसके ऊपर काम कर रहे हैं, राइट। जहाँ पे हमारे यहाँ पे टिपिकल डायलॉग्स और बाकी फॉर्मेट्स रहते हैं, राइट। वहाँ पे मैंने बहुत सारी मूवी, ब्यूटी एंड द बीस्ट जैसा आपने देखा होगा, पोइटिक सिनेरियोज है, राइट। पूरा पोइटिकली लिखा गया है ताकि ऑडियंस उस पर्टिकुलर चीज़ से डिस्कनेक्ट नहीं हो और एक फ़्लो में चलता रहे। तो जैसा वो कर रहे हैं, मैंने इंडिया में अभी फ़िलहाल अपनी इंडस्ट्री में ऐसा कुछ देखा नहीं है कि पर्टिकुलरली कोई पोएटिक वे में किसी चीज़ को एक्सप्लेन करने की कोशिश कर रहा है। आपको ऐसा लगता है, कोई एग्जांपल है आपके पास में कि आप बता सकते हो कि यहाँ के राइटर्स भी वैसा कुछ कर रहे हैं यहाँ पे, ताकि लोग सुने, ना सिर्फ देखें, सुने भी।
So recent example which comes to my mind is this blockbuster महान अवतार नरसिम्हा, जो अभी नेटफ्लिक्स पे एनिमेटेड मूवी है।
yes.
और उसमें अपना अगर देखी है, मैंने भी देखी लास्ट वीक, एंड आई थिंक देयर वाज अ लॉट ऑफ पोइट्री इन दैट मूवी। द वे द डिवोशन, जो प्रहलाद का डिवोशन है विष्णु जी की तरह, जो जिस तरह से वो डिपिक्ट किया था, बहुत ही सुंदर था। द लिटिल टूल्स दे हैड यूज्ड, जैसे एक फ्लावर था, जब भी वो विष्णु जी की प्रार्थना करता है या उन्हें याद करता है, वो एक फूल आता है स्क्रीन के ऊपर। दिस इज पोइट्री इन मोशन, राइट? समबडी इज इमेजिनिंग इट। उस मूवी में अनदर ब्यूटीफुल थिंग वाज देयर वाज एन अंडरले ऑफ मंत्रस, अ लॉट ऑफ विष्णु मंत्रस वर देयर थ्रू आउट द मूवी। वो भी आपको एक इमर्सिव एक्सपीरियंस में लेके जाते हैं, आप इस दुनिया से निकल जाते हो, उस दुनिया में चले जाते हो। ये तो एक रीसेंट एग्जाम्पल है जो मैंने अभी 2 दिन पहले देखी है। लेकिन आई थिंक we have a thing, Indians are not, we always look at the West for everything. But the fact is that, you know, Indian storytellers, Indian filmmakers are doing a wonderful job.
तो ये एक सॉल्यूशन हो सकता है, राइट? जैसा उसकी
Yeah.
सक्सेस है मूवी की,
Yeah.
हम लोगों ने देखा है कि एक नया न्यू नॉर्म्स हो सकता है, जो आपने बोला कि लोग सुनने में इंटरेस्टेड नहीं है, तो वो चीज़ को लेके एक सॉल्यूशन है मे बी, राइट? दूसरा, मैं जर्नलिज्म से हूँ, तो मुझे समझना था कि वाइल राइटिंग स्टोरीज, लाइनियर और नॉन लाइनियर स्टोरीज़ को लिखने में क्या डिफ़िकल्टीज आती है? मुझे पता है कि लीनियर लिखने में आप ईयर बाय ईयर जो पास हो रहा है वो सारी चीज़ों को लिख रहे हो, राइट? नॉन लीनियर मुझे पता है कि एक कट, उसके बाद में किसी और एरा में जा रहे हो, उसको कट, फिर एक और ईयर पास जा रहे हो, तो उसको रिलेट करना एक राइटर के लिए कितना कॉम्प्लिकेटेड होता है?
जो ऐसा सो जब आप नॉन लीनियर लिखना चाहते हो ना, तो आप उसको स्ट्रक्चर करने नहीं बैठो कि मैं किसको क्या कहाँ कब दिखाऊंगा. वॉट यू शुड कीप इन योर माइंड इज़, जब मैं किसी को कहानी सुनाऊंगा तो मैं बाय डिफ़ॉल्ट यहाँ वहाँ जाता हूँ ना, कभी अभी का बता रहा हूँ, कभी पहले का बता रहा हूँ, कभी किसी और वक्त का बता रहा हूँ. तो जो फर्स्ट ड्राफ्ट आप लिखते हो ना, तो यू राइट द वे यू विल नरेटेड टू मी. फॉर इंस्टेंस कि पता है अभी मैं ये कर रहा था, लेकिन पता है क्या हुआ, 5 साल पहले ऐसे हुआ था ना, उसकी वजह से मैं आज ये कर रहा हूँ. सो व्हेन यू गो इन दैट फैशन ऑफ राइटिंग ऑल्सो, व्हेन यू विल री रीड इट ड्यूरिंग योर सेकेंड ड्राफ्ट के लिए, तो फिर आप स्ट्रक्चर तब करने बैठो. आप इनिशियली जब हम अपने आप को डब्बे में बंद कर लेते हैं ना लिखते वक्त, तो फिर वो चीज़ निकल के नहीं आती उतनी इफेक्टिवली. सो फर्स्ट ड्राफ्ट, be a wild horse, write the way you would tell me verbally, put it into words and things, and then start structuring from an edit point of view. कि जब edit होगी ये final film दिखेगी ऐसी तो अच्छी लगेगी क्या, then you will not go wrong in writing non-linear.
मैं भी हमेशा से वही सोचता था, क्योंकि लोगों के साथ में नॉर्मल कन्वर्सेशन करना, नॉन लाइनियर स्टोरीज और ये सारी चीज़ें ऑल ऑफ सडन हो सकती है. जब मैंने स्लम डॉग मिलीनियर देखा, राइट, आपने देखा हो तो आपको पता है उसमें नॉन लाइनियर स्टोरीज़ है, कोई सिनेरियोज है जो केबीसी में क्वेश्चनिंग हुई है और फिर वो डाइवर्ट हो रहा है सीन बैक पे जो उनके साथ में हुई है. वैसी और कोई भी मूवी एक सॉल्यूशन बन सकती है इंडस्ट्री में?
आई थिंक द नॉन लीनियर का सबसे ब्यूटिफुल एक्सपीरियंस है रंग दे बसंती. यू सी द वे दे हैव रिटन दैट फिल्म, इट्स लाइक आउटस्टैंडिंग. इवन रॉक स्टार फॉर दैट मैटर. नॉन लीनियर फॉर मी, दीज आर 2 वेरी फेवरेट फिल्म्स ऑफ माइन इन नॉन लीनियर फॉर्मेट, क्योंकि वो आपको ग्रिप भी छोड़ती नहीं है और आपको सब जगह ले जाती हैं, जिस भी दशक में ले जाना चाह रहे हैं, जिस भी इमोशन में ले जाना चाह रहे हैं.
ऑल्सो आई हैव वन मोर क्वेश्चन मैम. डॉक्यूमेंट्री जॉनर्स में कौन सा डिफ़िकल्ट जॉनर्स है आपके हिसाब से जिसको लिखना हो? आई नो कि एक्सपोजिटरी डॉक्यूमेंट्री है, आप पर्टिकुलर चीज़ को एक्सपोज कर रहे हो, उसके बाद में जितनी डॉक्यूमेंट्रीज़ है, आई नो कि बहुत सारी डॉक्यूमेंट्री ऐसी है जिसमें आपको, जैसे आपने डॉक्यू ड्रामा बोला था, राइट, तो डॉक्यू ड्रामा में आई नो कि कोई सिनेरियो हुआ है, बट डेप्थ में नहीं पता आपको कि वो उस वक्त एक्सप्रेशन क्या है, कितने लोग थे आसपास और बाकी सारी चीज़ें, तो उसको इमेजिन करने में आपको कोई डिफ़िकल्टीज और ऐसा?
सबसे ज़्यादा मुश्किल जो डॉक्यूमेंट्री जॉनर अगर आप पूछोगे लिखना, इज़ ऑन वॉर. बिकॉज उसमें इतने इमोशंस चलते हैं साथ में कि उसको हैंडल करना एज अ डॉक्यूमेंट्री फिल्म मेकर मुश्किल हो जाता है. आई मेड अ डॉक्यूमेंट्री ऑन द 26/11 मुंबई टेरर अटैक, जिसके लिए मुझे 3 अवार्ड्स मिल चुके हैं. आई वॉज इनिशियली एवरी ईयर इन्वाइटेड ऑल्सो ऑन न्यूज़ चैनल्स टू स्पीक एंड एवरीथिंग, बट आई नो हाउ मच पेन आई वेंट थ्रू इट वाइल राइटिंग इट. मैंने किसी को खोया नहीं उस अटैक में, बट इट इज़ सो क्लोज टू माई हार्ट, क्योंकि जब मैं लिख रही थी कुछ और किताब और ये पूरा दिन ये सब चलता रहता था, इट हिट मी सो बैडली दैट आई न्यू आई हैड टू मेक इट. एंड व्हेन आई हैड टू रीविजिट इट एंड मीट पीपल हु आर इम्पैक्टेड, इट वॉज द मोस्ट पेनफुल एक्सपीरियंस फॉर मी. सो कभी कभी हम इतने एंगेज हो जाते हैं डॉक्यूमेंट्री में कि आप उसमें मतलब वॉर है और ये सब चीज़ें, बाकी तो आप हिस्टोरिकल फिगर्स, मॉन्यूमेंट्स किसी पे भी लिख लो आप. आई मीन आई हैव डन ऑन डायमंड इंडस्ट्री, आई हैव डन ऑन कैंसर अवेयरनेस, आई एम अ कैंसर सर्वाइवर माई सेल्फ, बट आई वेंट थ्रू इट, सो इट वॉज नॉट सो पेनफुल फॉर मी. बट जैसे मैंने बताया, मुंबई टेरर अटैक वॉज टू पेनफुल फॉर मी. आई हैव ग्रोन अप इन दिस सिटी, आई लव दिस सिटी एंड इट वॉज टू मच फॉर मी टू हैंडल. सो हर किसी का एक अपना कॉलिंग होता है. और डॉक्यू ड्रामा so is something which is just a little fictionalized version of the documentary, so you can always get to play with that. That doesn't impact you so much, you know.
So Viru is here to remind us it's time for us to
Yes.
close the session. I think there was one question at the back. Did you have a question? Let's take that last question from the lady in the black and then we can close.
Hello. Good
Hi.
evening. Good evening, everyone. Actually, I don't have a question, but Varsha ma'am had a question like, we are all into scrolling and nobody is listening. So why is it so? So I just wanted to, I had some thoughts then. I am not in from this field yet. I am a very ardent audience. So from wherever I get any content, be it a podcast or be it whatever the platforms are. So ma'am, to your question that why we are only into scrolling and not into audio, एक आम आदमी के हिसाब से what I understand is in our busy life, we want something very easy to get stress free. Scrolling is something only that we see. Audio is giving stress to brain. सुनना पड़ता है, समझना पड़ता है, and we don't want to do that. We just want to just randomly curtains की तरह देखते रहना है हमें, and that's why audio. I'm sorry, that gentleman would disagree with me as he said that people do go into podcast and there was 8 hours ka podcast and all. Yes, passionate people, they are passionate, they will go into podcast, or people who are seekers or learners. But आम आदमी आफ्टर थक के घर के आता है ना, उसको स्ट्रेस नहीं लेना होता है सुन के समझने का, उसको सिर्फ देखना ही होता है.
So the even deeper level is reading, right? So the whole idea is how many senses are being engaged in consuming that content.
Yes.
So when I'm watching an audio visual, right, I am very passive because it's somebody else's imagination, somebody else's script, and I'm just consuming it.
Yes.
When it's audio, there is one level less because I'm not watching. It's only one sense. I'm only listening.
Yes.
Right? So I have to imagine it. But somebody is telling me the story. When I'm reading, I have to use all my senses because I have to read it, I have to understand it, I have to imagine it, I have to push the narrative forward in my head.
Yes.
So my advice to everybody in the room is please do your brain a favor and please make it a habit to read for 15 minutes every day, like a real book.
And on the closing note of that particular question is that it's all attention span and a personal choice of what de-stresses you, which makes all the changes. Like someone would love to hear the 5-hour podcast and learn something and you get freshened up, and somebody likes to switch channels like... So on that note...
Thank you for being a lovely audience.
Yes. Sure.
We are out of time, so maybe we can...
One quick question, yeah.
So, thank you for being here and sharing things. I just wanted to say that about listening, that listening actually happens in space and time, and listening helps us to come in present tense. So it is more like a medicine. So even if it is a little trouble, maybe we should try and listen. It helps even to each other. If we listen more, we understand each other more.
Well said, well said.
Thank you, sir.
To all of you. Thank you
that was really an
being a
engaging
lovely
session.
audience.
We've actually lived up to the topic, vintage fables or a fireside chat. Thank you, ladies. Please allow us to present a token of gratitude on behalf of Nuremberg Messe India. May I please request Ms. Pranali Roth, Assistant Project Director, Asia's Broadcasting and Infotainment Show. That's a small green step that we've taken to plant a tree in their behalf. Yes, with all the ladies on the stage. Thank you so much, ladies.